February 21st, 2025, 12:27 p.m. UTC, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. The trading floor hums. Screens flicker with green and red. The air conditioning pushes cold, recycled air through the vents, a faint chemical sweetness that never quite disappears in buildings like this. Somewhere, a server rack exhales a low electric drone, the kind of sound you stop hearing after the first week. Inside Bybit's operations center, a routine task is underway. A transfer, cold wallet to warm wallet, Ethereum. It is a movement the team executes regularly, a procedural heartbeat of the exchange's daily rhythm. 3 signers sit at their stations, hardware wallets glowing. The safe wallet interface loads on their screens, clean, familiar. The transaction details appear exactly as they expected. The destination address, the amount, everything checks out. They sign. All 3 of them sign. And in the space between one keystroke and the next, in a silence no alarm will break for several minutes, $1.5 billion begins to move. Not to where Bybit intended, not to the warm wallet, somewhere else entirely. Somewhere controlled by a ghost. The most hardened cold wallet in Dubai, one designed to sit offline, untouchable, beyond the reach of any internet-connected threat, is, at this moment, wide open, and no one in the room knows it. How does a group of hackers, operating from one of the most isolated nations on Earth, reach into the deepest vault of a major cryptocurrency exchange without ever triggering a single alarm? And why does the lock that is supposed to protect it, the very system built for security, become the weapon used to break it open? Act 2. The Legend. Bybit is not a small operation. By early 2025, it ranks among the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world, Dubai-based, serving millions of users across the globe. Billions in daily trading volume flow through its systems like blood through a circulatory network. And its security architecture, on paper, is formidable. The exchange stores the majority of user funds in cold wallets. These are offline storage systems, no internet connection, no live API, no way, in theory, for a remote attacker to touch them. The private keys never leave a hardened environment. They sit in the dark. They wait. But cold wallets alone are not enough. Bybit layers on a second defense, multi-signature authorization. To move funds out of a cold wallet, the transaction must be approved by multiple independent signers. In Bybit's case, at least 3. Each signer holds a separate hardware wallet, a physical device, a ledger, that generates cryptographic signatures offline. No single person can authorize a transfer, no single point of failure. This is the gold standard. This is what the industry calls best practice. To manage these multi-sig transactions, Bybit relies on Safe Wallet, a third-party platform. Safe Wallet is not a small player either. It's one of the most widely adopted multi-signature wallet solutions in the entire crypto ecosystem, trusted by exchanges, institutions, DAOs, and governments. Its open-source code has been audited. Its reputation is built on decades of collective scrutiny. The rules of the game. A signer logs into Safe Wallet's web interface. A transaction is proposed. The interface displays the destination address, the amount, the token type. The signer reviews. If it looks correct, they connect their hardware wallet. The hardware wallet presents the cryptographic details for review. The signer approves. The signature is generated. Once all required signatures are collected, the transaction is broadcast to the Ethereum network. The system is designed so that even if one signer is compromised, the others serve as a firewall. Even if the web interface is compromised, the hardware wallet still forces a human to physically approve what it sees. It is, by every standard the industry recognizes, a fortress.
It takes something extraordinary to break a fortress from the inside. Phase 1 of the heist. The seed. February 4th, 2025, somewhere outside Pyongyang. A message arrives. The details how it arrives, whether through telegram, email, or a forum, remain partially obscured. What is known is this: a developer working for SafeWallet, referred to in forensic reports only as Developer 1, downloads a Docker project. The project is named MC-based Stock Invest Simulator Main. It sits in the Downloads folder, a normal location, a normal action. Developers download projects constantly. They troubleshoot, they test, they build. The file doesn't look suspicious. It doesn't announce itself. It simply sits there, waiting to be opened. Developer 1 opens it. The Docker container initializes. The hum of local compilation fills the machine, a quiet, mechanical process, like a small engine warming up in the next room. A progress bar ticks forward. Everything appears to function as intended. But inside the container, a hidden process reaches outward. It contacts a domain, getstockprice.com. This domain was registered on Namecheap just 2 days prior. It's a throwaway, a mailbox with no return address. The connection is established, and Developer 1's Mac OS workstation, now a beachhead, begins to report back. The smell of cold coffee sits on the desk beside the keyboard. The developer doesn't notice it. There's nothing to notice. There's nothing to notice.
Phase 2, the reconnaissance. February 5th through February 17th, 12 days. The attackers do not rush, they never rush. From Developer 1's compromised machine, they extract AWS session tokens, the temporary credential keys that grant access to SafeWallet's cloud infrastructure. These tokens are live, they are valid, they belong to a real developer with elevated permissions. They use them carefully. They connect through ExpressVPN. Their user agent string, the digital fingerprint that identifies a machine to a server, reads distrib/Kali/2024, Kali Linux, a distribution built for offensive security operations. They are not hiding what they are doing from themselves, only from everyone else. They time their activity to align with Developer 1's normal working hours. If the logs are reviewed, the access patterns look like a developer simply doing their job. Late morning sessions, midday queries, nothing out of place. They attempt to register an additional MFA device on Developer 1's account. It fails. SafeWallet's configuration requires re-authentication every 12 hours. They note this. They adapt. They don't need a new device. They already have the session token. They already are, for all intents and purposes, Developer 1. For 12 days, they move through SafeWallet's AWS environment like water through a pipe. Quiet, purposeful, mapping the architecture, identifying the S3 bucket that serves the SafeWallet web application, finding the JavaScript files that render the signing interface. They find exactly what they need. Phase 3. The malicious contract. February 18th, 2025. 3 days before the heist, a single transaction was broadcast to the Ethereum mainnet. It deploys a smart contract. On the surface, it looks unremarkable, a standard deployment. But its bytecode, when reverse engineered, reveals something specific, something purposeful. The contract contains a function that mimics the signature of an ERC20 token transfer. Transfer, address, uint64. A familiar shape, something any signer would recognize as routine. But it does not transfer anything. Instead, when called via a delegate call, a special Ethereum operation that executes external code within the context of the calling contract, it does one thing. It overwrites storage slot 0, and storage slot 0 in a SafeWallet proxy contract holds the address of the master copy, the implementation contract that contains all the wallet's logic.
Change that single value, and you change everything the wallet can do. The contract sits on the blockchain, dormant, patient, a loaded weapon with the safety still on. Phase 4, the injection. February 25, 2025, 14 hours before the heist. The attackers access SafeWallet's AWS S3 bucket, the storage system that hosts the web application's static files. They locate a specific JavaScript resource, app/52C90303DA47.js. This is the file that governs how the SafeWallet interface renders transactions and processes signatures. They modify it. The injected code is elegant in its specificity. It does not affect every user. It does not break the application. It does not trigger an error log. It activates and only activates when the transaction originates from one of two specific contract addresses. One is Bybit's cold wallet. The other is likely the attacker's own test address. For every other user on SafeWallet, the interface functions exactly as it always has: normal, trusted, invisible. But when a Bybit signer initiates a transaction from the cold wallet, the code executes a precise sequence. Step 1. It saves a copy of the original legitimate transaction data. Step 2. It replaces the data that will actually be signed. The destination address is changed. The operation type is switched to delegate call, operation code 1. The data payload is rewritten to call the attacker's pre-deployed contract. The value is set to 0. Step 3. The tampered transaction is sent to the signer's hardware wallet for approval. Once the signer signs, approving what they believe is a routine transfer, the code performs one final critical manipulation. It swaps the signed data back to the original transaction. The signature now belongs to the tampered version, but the data displayed in the SafeWallet gateway and stored in SafeWallet's gateway shows the legitimate one. The next signer sees a clean transaction, a normal transfer, no red flags. They sign too. And the third signee, they sign as well. 3 valid signatures, all attached to a transaction that does something entirely different from what any of them believed they were approving.
Act 4. The Climax. February 21st, 2025, 12:27 p.m. UTC, Dubai. The routine begins. A transfer is scheduled. Cold wallet to warm wallet. Standard procedure. The operations team initiates the process through SafeWallet's web interface. 12:27 p.m. The first signer reviews the transaction. The interface displays the correct destination address, the correct amount, the correct token. Everything matches the internal record. They connect their Ledger hardware wallet. The device prompts for approval. The data is not fully human-readable. Nested delegate call parameters rarely are, but the signer has seen similar prompts before. Bybit itself executed a delegate call transaction as recently as January 14th, a transfer of mMeth tokens. This looks familiar. They approve. 12:28 p.m. The second signer receives the pending transaction notification. The SafeWallet interface shows the same clean details, the same legitimate destination. They review. They connect their hardware wallet. They approve. 12:29 p.m. The third signer. Same interface, same data, same approval flow. They sign. The threshold is met. 3 of 3 signatures collected. The transaction is broadcast to the Ethereum network. 12:30 p.m. The Ethereum node receives the transaction. It calls the exect transaction function on Bybit's cold wallet proxy contract. The master copy contract validates the signatures. All 3 are legitimate. All 3 are mathematically correct.
for the data that was actually signed. The operation parameter reads 1. Delegate call. The proxy delegates execution to the attacker's contract at address 9622-1423-681A6 D52E400FB. The attacker's contract executes its transfer function, but it is not a transfer. It writes a new address into storage slot 0. BDD077F651E B75F 3C16F5922966. The master copy pointer, the single variable that defines what Bybit's cold wallet can do, now points to a contract entirely controlled by the Lazarus group. The proxy is no longer Bybit's. 12:30 p.m. and 42 seconds, the attacker's new implementation activates. It contains two functions that did not exist before, sweep ETH and sweep ERC20. No multisig approval required, no additional signatures. The wallet is now a unilateral instrument. 401,347 ETH, valued at approximately $1.5 billion, begins to move. Not to Bybit's warm wallet, to 50 wallets, each holding roughly 10,000 ETH, spread across the blockchain in a single coordinated sweep. Gone. 12:32 p.m. 2 minutes after the malicious transaction executes, a clean version of the JavaScript file is uploaded to SafeWallet's S3 bucket. The injected code disappears. The web application returns to its normal state. For any future user, nothing looks wrong. Nothing ever looked wrong. The evidence self-destructs. The pivot, the one crack in the armor. It is not a technical failure, not entirely. The delegate call mechanism exists by design. The proxy pattern is a standard architectural choice. The multisig process worked exactly as engineered. It validated 3 legitimate signatures on a legitimate transaction. The crack is quieter than that. It lives in the space between what the interface showed and what was actually signed. It lives in the trust a signer places on a screen they have seen 1,000 times before, in the familiarity that makes a person stop reading the fine print. Developer 1 downloaded a Docker project because it looked like something worth troubleshooting. The signers approved a transaction because it looked like something they had approved before. EX refused to freeze stolen assets because Bybit had, in their view, wronged them first. Trust, familiarity, routine. These are not bugs. They are features of being human. And the Lazarus Group spent 17 days studying exactly where those features could be exploited. Act 5. The Epilogue. The Money Trail. Within 2 hours of the theft, the stolen funds are dispersed across 50 wallets. Over the next 9 days, those wallets are emptied one by one, a methodical, unhurried process. The ETH is converted to Bitcoin. By March 20th, 86.29% of the stolen Ethereum has been swapped to BTC. Bitcoin is harder to trace than Ethereum. Its transaction model, unspent output, resembles physical cash. Each bill must be tracked individually. The funds flow through decentralized exchanges, cross-chain bridges, and no KYC instant swap services. Thornchain processes the bulk. Nearly $1.2 billion moves through it. The remaining funds pass through EX, a no KYC exchange that refuses Bybit's direct request to freeze attacker addresses. EX's response to Bybit's risk team is blunt. We would appreciate a clear explanation as to why we should consider providing assistance to an organization that has actively undermined our reputation. Around $200 million, nearly 15% of the total, passes through EX before it shuts down on May 1, 2025, citing unspecified pressure. Bitcoin mixers activate next. Crypto mixer, Wasabi wallet. Stolen assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars disappear into mixing pools, where individual transaction trails dissolve into collective noise. Then come the peer-to-peer vendors, and finally, money laundering as a service networks operated by organized crime syndicates across China and Southeast Asia. A flood-the-zone strategy, thousands of transactions, both automated and manual, designed to overwhelm every compliance analyst, every blockchain investigator, every law enforcement agency watching. The FBI identifies the attack within days. They attribute it publicly to Trader, the specific subunit of North Korea's Reconnaissance Bureau responsible for this operation. Blockchain analytics firms freeze over $42 million in the first 48 hours, but $42 million against $1.5 billion is a fraction. The window for seizure closes fast. Where are they now? Bybit remains solvent. CEO Ben Zhou communicates publicly within 30 minutes of the breach. The exchange processes over $4 billion in withdrawals in the days that follow, without disruption. User funds are covered. The platform rebuilds its wallet infrastructure from the ground up. Isolated signing environments, stricter code reviews, real-time anomaly detection. SafeWallet patches the vulnerability in its client gateway, adding signature verification checks that should have existed from the start. The malicious JavaScript file is gone, but the forensic investigation into what happened inside SafeWallet's AWS environment during those 12 days of access remains incomplete. The Lazarus Group is silent, as it always is. North Korea's Reconnaissance Bureau doesn't comment. It never does. But the numbers tell their own story. In 2023, North Korean hackers stole $660 million across 20 incidents. In 2024, that figure rose to $1.34 billion across 47 incidents. The Bybit heist alone, a single operation, exceeded every theft North Korea executed in all of 2023 combined. A senior Biden administration official estimated that approximately 50% of North Korea's foreign currency earnings now come from cybercrime. A UN report suggests the country's weapons program, nuclear and ballistic, is substantially funded by these operations. The money doesn't stay in the blockchain. It becomes steel. It becomes fuel. It becomes something with a very different kind of payload. The most secure cold wallet in the world was never compromised directly. No one cracked the encryption. No one broke the hardware. No one defeated the multi-signature protocol. Instead, they changed what the signers saw. They made the lock open itself, willingly, correctly, exactly as designed, for a door that led somewhere else entirely. The system worked flawlessly. It simply worked for the wrong master.
And somewhere, in a nation the world has spent decades trying to isolate, a group of operators, trained since adolescence, funded by the state, invisible to every sanctions regime on Earth, closes their laptops. The hum of the servers fades. The screens go dark. The room is quiet. $1.5 billion has changed hands. No one saw it happen. If you think the Bybit heist was the most audacious cyber theft in history, wait until you see the file on the 2016 Bangladesh heist, when North Korea's Blunerov unit used the SWIFT banking network to steal $81 million from a sovereign nation's central bank in a single night. The printer in the corner of the room stopped working, and that silence was the first sign.